Greetings. In this last demonstration, we're going to be looking at bar charts and histograms. Now, the first thing, a little informational note here. The big difference between a bar chart and a histogram is whether or not the data is quantitative in nature or categorical in nature. So bar charts are used for categorical data. Histograms are used for quantitative data of some kind. And this arguably could also be ordinal data. And I'll show you a demonstration of that down here. But let's start off first off with just doing a simple bar chart. To do that, of course, we go back up to Insert, and we're going to select Bar Chart. I prefer the vertical ones. These tend to be the standard for social science, so this is what I like to use. Again, the simplest one, we don't want lots of three-dimensional things going on. That can be very confusing. Sometimes you need three-dimensional if we're talking about maybe complex brain waveforms and we're trying to plot that. But in most cases, we want simple. So regular column, in this case called a clustered column, is what we want. Okay, so I've got this ready to go. Now, one of the things that we need to do is group our data. All right, that's a new step here. In this case, I've got, based on some data that we got from a class, I gave a questionnaire to. I had them design a questionnaire, and then they gave it to each other, and I gave it to a few of my friends, and just to get some data. That's what this is. We need to group our data. In this case, what I want to do is, what we can do is, for example, we could see what the mean age, if there is a large difference in the mean age, not statistically, just visually, by gender. Okay, so in this case, I have it coded. This is from a code book here that I created. Gender, 1 is female, 2 is male. The first thing we need to do is order all this in terms of gender. To do that, I'm going to select all of the information that I want to sort. I'm going to go over here on the Home tab. I'm going to go to the right to sort and filter right here. Okay, and I'm going to custom sort. And in this case, I want to make sure my data has headers is selected, so it will use these as my sorting criteria. And I want to sort by gender. Okay, and it selects everything and sorts it by gender. Now, I've got my females here as 1 and my males here as 2. The next thing I need to do is I need to figure out averages. So I need to create another little piece of data on this Excel sheet. And I'll just call this female. And I'm going to use small u as a designator for average. Actually, I'm going to be using these for titling my data, so I'm going to actually use an abbreviation like this instead. Okay, and I just changed the width of the column just so we could see the whole thing easier. Okay, so I need the average here. I'm going to use a formula to do that. So remember, in Excel, you had equals when you want to tell Excel it's about time you're going to get a formula. And in this case, I already know it is average. I'm looking for a mean. Excel calls that an average. And I just want to select everybody next to 1. That's my female data. Okay, hit enter, and there it is. Next, for the male average, equals average. And I got my 2 guys right here. Okay, there we go. So now I've got my averages. This is the perfect kind of fodder for a bar chart. So we can go ahead and start that. So select the data. Our chart range is just these 2 guys right here. Okay, and notice there it is, piece of cake. Now I need to tell it what 1 and what 2 mean. So what are my horizontal category axis labels? They are female average and male average. Rather than typing it in, which you can do, but it's just much easier to hit edit and have it already typed out. Select them, and there you go. Female average, male average. Okay. Now looking at this, I'm going to have a title down here. I don't really need to have the average part in there. I can just have male and female. That's the most important part, is I know what the separation criteria for the category is. In this case, it's gender. Okay, so just as in the case of the other demonstrations, I'm going to get myself a little bit more room to work. I'm going to clean up a lot of this stuff immediately. Okay, no colors. Again, that's an issue for us, so we got to fix that. And just make it black. Oh, no, I wanted it for both. There we go. And I need to change this axis here. just black and broaden that out. And I also need a line here. Black and 1. Okay. And since I'm here, I might as well get this out of the way. Let's make these 10 and 10. And I might as well also take care of my tick marks. And when you do tick marks between bars, it's going to put it right in the middle, which is a good thing. Like so. So the eye has an indicator of where one piece of data lives and the other one lives. Now, if you wanted to, you could also, since this is based on means, you could do things like insert error bars and things like that. And if you need to do that, that's located in design here under error bars, and you can actually include error bars. Right? And once you put these in here, you can format them. You know, if you just wanted them to be the plus, if you wanted them to have no cap, you can actually put the error amount for statistics in here as well, which can be handy. Because of course, right, if we have a lot of error, then there's a possibility that the data from female might overlap with the data from male. Right? But I won't be doing that. Also notice it changed the scaling like crazy once we did that. All right, so there is your basic bar chart. Doesn't get much more basic than that. One of the things that you can also do visually to make things a little bit more clear. Notice they're both black. That can suggest to people that it's the same data, and in this case it is averages. But you may want to select just one of the boxes to do that. If you left click on the plot area, so basically the box that we make here, once it selects both pieces of data. If you click on it again, it will select just one of these pieces of data, which is what happened to me over here. In this case, I may want to change the way this looks a bit. Dry throat again. Allergies are killing me, I guess. That's the only thing I can think it is. Excuse me. All right. Rather than using just color, I can also fill with a pattern, which can be very handy. Like so. Right. So it's still black and white, but it gives a distinct difference between the graphs, or the data points for this graph. Right. So this might be another option for you. Something like that. Right. And then it's business as usual. We need to have axis titles. And in this case, this would be gender. And I would make this 12 points. And over here, oops, this would be age in years. And 12. Okay. And then it's just kind of business as usual, you know. Oop, that's one I always forget. The border around this box, right? This light gray border. No border. Okay. I have that. Copy it. And then it's usual. I actually came back to this because I wanted to show you. Okay, I showed you how to change the layout within the same document. Well, how do you change it back? You just do the same thing. What we're going to do is we're going to... I can never remember where this is. Nope. Page layout. Yeah, breaks. Okay. We're just going to do it again. Next page, section break. And then we go to orientation and change it back. Bingo. There we go. See? Same document, different layout styles. Just insert that, and there we have it. And I think I've done this enough now that I won't have to do it again, but another little trick with these titles is usually you want to talk about the x-axis or the independent variable and then the dependent variable. In this case, they're arguably both independents, but that's usually the way that you want to do it. So in this case, you can see that the age of the males in my study is significantly higher, likely. It is definitely higher than the females in my study. Since this is a sample and this is all of them, I can say that it is pretty significant. right? I don't have to do a statistical test necessarily for that. But that's basically the nice, simple way to do it. Now, one of the things on this I don't like is it filled it in, but it doesn't really have a line of demarcation, which means that the eye is having to use some of its cognitive processing to pretend there's a line going around this. I'm going to fix that by actually putting a border around the whole thing. Border, solid line, black, 0.75 is fine. Right, so now it's actually a block. You can see clearly there's lines around that. Okay. All right, so there's one. That's the most basic version of a bar chart. Now what I want to show you is a histogram. So remember, with histograms, we have to have ordinalized data. It's particularly good with quantitative. However, if it is truly continuous data, you are much better off using a line graph rather than a histogram typically. Okay, so what I've got here is what I did is I just add a subject identification number so I can keep everyone in check in terms of where the data lives, right? Then I got income, and actually I'll just show you what I did. Okay, what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to go back and I'm going to resort these by the subject identification number. All right, that's the set point. This is why we use identification numbers. It gives us a set point. Now what I need is the subject identification number, which I'm just going to copy and paste over here, and I need their income. I need it organized in the same way, so I am not changing the way it's sorted right now. Okay, now that I have this, what I need to do is figure out how many people endorsed a certain level of income. And the numbers here represent 1 is less than 9,999, 2 is 10,000 to 1499, so on and so forth. Okay, that's what these numbers represent. These are actually the counts. Okay, and I just manually counted those. I probably should have just walked through this and showed you. I will do that. Okay. What we have to do now is sort this by income. It's just going to make it easier for us to count. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Custom sort by income. Remember, my data has my data has headers is an important thing to have here. Okay, we got that sorted, and now I'm going to have a drink of water. Pardon the swallowing sounds if you can hear that. I just can't seem to get my throat from stopping being croaky. Okay. Did I hit scroll lock? Okay. Sorry, I had a problem there. I was like, why is my cells not moving? I had scroll lock pressed. Okay. Now that I've got this sorted, I just need to count the number of these numbers, basically. Now, if I had a large amount of data, I'd probably end up using some formulas like equals count, which can help you do some contingency things like this count if. That's good for complex data. In this case, it's not much. I can just read off of it. So, number 1, which is less than 9,999, I've got 1, 2, 3 of those. Number 2, I've got 1 of those. Number 3, I've got 1 of those. Number 4, I don't have any. Number 5, I've got 2. And number 6, I've got 3. And number 7, I've got 0. Okay. So there's my data. I have it nice and organized now in a way that I can make it into a histogram. Okay. Since I do have continuity between these and the intervals are equivalent, in other words, they're all dollar bills. This is just endorsing that somewhere their data, somewhere their actual figure lives within this bound. I can go ahead and use a histogram, and I'm going to do that. Histogram, basically, in terms of Excel, is just a bar chart. Same thing, right? So we repeat the process. I'm going to select my data. In this case, it's just these numbers here. Really? There wasn't one for? Interesting. Okay. And in terms of the categories, I can do my usual select the horizontal categories here. And notice it fills it all in. Okay. And voila, we have our basic chart again. I'm not going to necessarily walk through all the formatting, but I am going to change a few things without really talking about it too much, just so it can make a little bit more sense to us. Hopefully by now, if you've seen all of them, this should be pretty second nature to you. Oops. Now, in histograms, you do want to make sure that all of the bars are the same color, all right, because this is all the same data. It's not males and females. Categorical variables, it is a good idea to change the texture of the bars, but this is all representing the same data. We don't want to do that. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to mess with that yet because I know something coming up is gonna make things difficult for us here, and I want to demonstrate that. Okay, so I've got the essentials taken care of here. Now what I need to do is turn this into a histogram, and for histograms, the bars actually touch each other, okay? Right? This demonstrates that they are different discrete categories, but really they're not in this case, right? They're all about the amount of income, and it is somewhat continuous in that on the left, we have far less than all the way to the right. Okay, so to make that happen, what we need to do is, see if I can remember how to do this. Okay, there it is. If I click the boxes, I get an option here under the series options that allows me to adjust the series overlap as well as the gap width. In this case, I'm going to take the gap width and I'm going to turn it to 0%. Notice what happened now is they actually touch each other. This was the problem I was talking about before. Now I don't really have a good indication of where they stop. My eye doesn't, it looks like a big L. Looks like I'm playing a game of Tetris here. I'm not quite sure where these things become discrete. To fix that, we use the shading. Okay, so best way to do this, and this works great in black and white applications too, is for the border, you want a black border, and 75 is fine. In terms of the fill, you don't want any fill. Okay, once we do that, you notice we get some black and white rectangles. Okay, and this gives us nice histogram data. I don't know how to put that. Something like that, I guess. Then I just go about my usual business of, inserting some tick marks and getting it cleaned up so that I can make it presentable. I'm purposely showing you these processes multiple times because I'm not sure everybody would have seen all the videos, so I just want to give a brief demonstration on some of this if I can as I go. We're good. And last thing is let's see, yearly house income gross, and you need to be 12 points up here. Oops. Vertical. You are number of participants. Oops, gotta make that 12 as well. 12. And these get pretty smushed together, so I would probably do the orientation change here as well. Oh, that's pretty rough. I don't know. Let's see what we got. What else maybe could we do? No. I actually, one of the things I kind of like is you can angle it, which sometimes isn't too bad. That's not too bad. I'm not sure. I'm just kind of sitting here considering, and that can happen. You got to think about what version is going to work best for you. That looks a little bit, I don't know, a little too liney. I don't know if I could perhaps force some breaks between them. No, it's going to make it difficult. Actually, now that I look at it, I think if I was forced to make a choice, I probably would do a custom angle of maybe 45 degrees, something like that. And just do our usual. In this case, I'm going to make a new page, insert, see what we got. Okay. And it's got a huge border around it, which needs to go away. So let me get rid of that. No line. Okay. And then again, usual, put your title up in there. I feel wrong if I don't actually put that in there. And remember, when we're doing this, figures are anything that are picture-like. Figures are anything that are picture-like. Tables are anything that are actual enumerated data. There's no picture to it. Let's see. There you go, something like that. Right. And the strength of the line seems to interfere a little bit here. I might change the way that the weight of it, but I think this serves its purpose. And here it is. So here's a histogram. Here's a histogram. Here's a bar chart. And in the previous, of course, we learned about line graphs. And here's a compound line graph and a scatter plot. All right. So that is it. Again, please, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, any requests, particularly any requests, please leave a comment for me, and I'd be happy to try to put together something for you. All right. Hope this has been helpful.